I have a 7-month-old, right? And it's instantaneous. It's like if you go up serious, then they match your serious, they're
Right.
like, what's serious?
Yeah.
If you go up and you smile and you laugh, we're always doing that with babies. But why do we stop, right? Why do we then
Right.
change?
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm Makena Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi, McKenna.
Hi. So
Hi there.
we are just chatting because Gigi's getting ready to go to Mexico.
Yeah.
To lead a retreat.
Yes, ma'am. Super fun one, the couples one, which is my favorite. Yeah, no. I like the other ones too, but I love the topic. Yeah. It's the most fun to lead. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's your birthday this weekend or soon.
Yeah, on Sunday it is. Yes.
Amazing. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I know
what I'm going to do.
I don't know if I'm ready to sing on air for everybody.
Do you know what I'm going to do for my birthday is swim with the turtles in Mexico.
Ooh, sounds so fun.
I've never done that, so I'm excited.
Wow, that's going to be amazing. Like the big ones?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So fun. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about tone. And so this is a communication episode, which is one of our favorite topics, as those of you who listen in frequently know, and one of Gigi's areas of genius. And so, Gigi, you were telling me a little bit about tone and why it's important. And I think people know about it, but I think they don't think it's an issue for them a lot of the time. They're like, oh, my tone's fine.
Mm. Yeah, like we talked about a few minutes ago was, that over the last 40 years, I've been working with people on their communication and, just how they come across. And I know we did another podcast on impact, but like you said, a lot of times people, we don't have any idea about our tone unless, like for us, we go on and we are doing the podcast and we have a lot of recorded, things that we listen back to. And I think even for me, a lot of times I hear my tone and I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds a little serious. And so especially in our, I think, personal relationships, but also in business, how we communicate with people and how our tone comes across makes a huge difference in how people collaborate with us and also how people feel when they're with us, right? Or when they, when we're asking them to do something, with kids, often you get upset with kids and then you change your tone completely. You go do this, because that tone has a different impact than if I say, hey, would you go do this? But the truth is probably the lighter one would even work as well, right? Than the more difficult one. But the more serious one gets their attention because there's such a drastic difference. And they know that tone means I'm serious. Right. So tone is an amazing thing with our voices, and especially for people who speak. But like we said before, is I don't think people often know how they come across in their tone because it just speaks so much when it comes to communication. It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you're listening to this and you're going, I don't know if this is really helpful for me or if I really need this, it's kind of like, are you getting the results you want in your relationships, whether that's with your partner, with your kids, or are you having the kind of communication or the kind of outcomes that you want? And if you're not, then this is one piece of the puzzle. It's one thing to look at and go, what is my tone? And could that be playing a role? And Gigi, I don't think you said this yet. You were going to talk about, especially in dynamics with men and women, right? For men, it's really important. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, it's important for both. I've often heard men say that when women shift their tone to a more serious, it's like, we need to talk, right? Men are like, oh, no, we don't. And they want to move a different direction because it sounds like confrontation, And I was just reading one of the Gottman books, a book called Man's Guide to, do you know what it is? I told
A
you.
Man's Guide to Women, or A Man's Guide to Understanding Women, or something like that.
Something, yeah. And he said the two things that like bother men the most is like fighting with women and not having enough sex. Those are the two things. They don't want to fight as much, and they would love to have more sex. And if you think about it, in the fighting, that has to do with tone, because I've seen that in my coaching many times, in coaching couples. Let's say on the woman's side, as a woman will communicate in a certain way, and it's a more serious and kind of adversarial tone, and the man just shuts down, But then she can change when I show her. If she changes by making it a request and saying, hey, I'd love to talk about this, instead of we need to talk. Yeah. Then that different energy gets a completely different response.
Yeah. And I think day to day, even, beyond we need to talk, it's like just your tone in general when you're with your partner, right? It's like if I wake my husband up in the morning and I'm like, it's such a small difference, for me to make the shift. But if I'm just like in my day, busy because I'm up before him, and then I get him up and I'm just doing what I'm doing and whatever, I get one version of him, right?
Yeah.
If I come and I take 2 minutes and I'm just sweet and I give him some kisses and oh, baby, good morning, whatever. And then I could share whatever after 2 minutes later, after he's woken up a little bit, or maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, completely different version of him. And that lasts sometimes all day, or at least for several hours, So that one small tweak, it takes me slowing down a little bit and changing my approach and changing my tone, but it gets a completely different result. So,
yeah, and we're so used to just being unconscious and just being, like I've been going through a hard time and I'm in overwhelm, and I know like my tone, I hear myself and I see myself and I'm just like embarrassed, but I'm moving so fast. It feels like I can't stop this boat. Right. But I'm trying all the time to change things. Like I had an intense 24 hours because I thought I had lost my passport. And then and I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to lighten up here. I mean, if I lost my passport, I can go get a new passport. Thank God. Right. So I think our tone, like you said, all through our day, and our tone also has to do with how we approach life, right? How do we navigate the challenges in our life? And that shows up in our tone as well.
Yeah. So we're talking about tone of voice, but you're saying too, there's like the energetic side as well, right? It's like your energy coming through your voice. And I think that's one way that our tone comes out in a way we don't intend, or that we're not aware that it's not having the impact we want. And I think the other way it comes out is just when people are unconscious and habitual with their tone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So it can be one or the other. It can be you're kind of going through something and it's showing up there. In, like you said, more seriousness or more intensity or whatever your version of that is, or the habitual side of just like some of us have just never thought about it. Right. And how we come across.
Yeah. No, I often think if people were recorded, if we're recorded to hear how we sound, we'd be shocked. We'd shocked a lot of the time. And, switching that back around, I was talking about women's tone, but it's the same with men, because sometimes when men are stressed, they have much more of an aggressive tone, which for women feels like, like they're not being listened to, or they can't talk to their partner, or they're being aggressive. And again, they're just being who they're being and doing what they're doing. And, you can say, a lot of people will say, well, I don't have time to spend and change my tone or whatever. But the truth is, all it is really a practice matter, which is the interesting thing. It's being aware, and then it's starting to practice. a different tone or a different way you come across or a different way you approach people. Yeah.
Could you give the example of shut the door?
Yeah. So there's an example of, different ways you can say something and the tone and how the impact of it. So I can say, shut the door. Shut the door. Shut the door, please. Shut the door. Now, each one of those was a very different communication. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an example of just saying the same words. It's not about the words. There's many statistics out there, right? I don't know them off the top of my head, but like, do you know some huge amount of our communication is tone?
Well, it's about 30% of our communication is tone. It's 93%. Now, this was done a study out of in LA University, and there's been some, I think, pushback on this particular study, but we do know this one was 93% of our communication has nothing to do with words. It has to do with tone. It has to do with how we move our hands, our facial expression, our body language. Yeah. And so if you think about 93%, wow. Yeah. And 30% tone.
30% tone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating. So there you have it in terms of how you're coming across. Your tone, your energy is a huge part of it. So it starts with just awareness. I think it's interesting. You said if people recorded themselves. I was listening to the audiobook the other day, Hunt, Gather, Parent, which is a really great book on parenting in like tribal communities and tribal societies and how people have parented through the millennia. And she talks about at one point that she recorded herself by accident. Her phone was on or something in the kitchen. And she recorded like an hour of herself in the kitchen with her daughter, her young daughter. And she said she listened back to it later and she cried. She was like, she couldn't believe how much she was like telling her what to do, the way she was responding to her. And she was just like, oh my God, it just woke her up. And so she encourages parents to actually do that, to put on an audio recording a couple times when they're just in doing things with their kids. Now you can't change what you're doing. You have to just act like you would normally act. So maybe you have to do it a few times. Otherwise you're modifying, but she was just like, you'll be shocked at how many times you respond in a certain way or tell them what to do or whatever it might be. And I just thought that was so interesting. So she actually did record herself. Yeah. And you were talking about AI, right? How AI talks back to you. Do you want to?
Yeah. So my ChatGPT, I noticed that the voice changed and the female voice, and it used to be much more upbeat. Now I listened and it's kind of like more serious and a little slower and dry. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think it's reflecting my voice when I talk to it. Right. And I was it's like, we got to change this up. My goodness. Even if I listen, I think AI is going to be a great reflection. That's the other thing too, think about it. Right. So it's just going to model what we do. And then we're going to see ourselves and go, wait a minute. There's the mirror. Right. But absolutely. It's interesting. I listened to my programs. Like I did that, Man Whisper program back in, what was it, 16 years ago or something. And the audio recording of that, I listened to it a couple of times because I was looking for something in some content. And same thing, my voice was so much lighter. So much lighter. The tone. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
so much lighter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting at different times in our life.
And a lot more Southern.
Really?
Oh my gosh. You should hear. In some old tapes, I sound like this. Yeah. It's amazing.
Wow.
How much my voice has changed.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's definitely, this has been an area of learning for me because I have a long way to go with this, but I used to talk very, I think, flat monotone. A lot of the time. Oh, yeah, monotone, and not really have a lot of I don't know what you call it when you're not monotone, but like not a lot of sort of ups and downs in my voice and different, I don't know, inflection or emotion, or that's started to change as I have, gone into the kind of work that we do, and we're working with people, and you've reflected a lot to me over the years, and sometimes hearing myself on video or audio, has helped me to become more aware of that, because I think going beyond just tone and conversation with your, partner or your kids, that's one representation of it. Another one is just how we speak in general, and what's the impact, like you're saying, or what's the communication? How are we coming across to people? And what is that also telling people, about us, which is kind of interesting to think about. Is that what you want to be communicated through your voice, or do you want a different result again?
Yeah. And like the lady that accidentally recorded herself with her talking to her daughter, I think you said it was, the thing when you do hear yourself, it's not when you change your tone, but you also change your approach, because often our tone comes with a certain way we approach situations too. And so that's where in the communication is maybe after we hear ourselves, we change the words we use, or how we talk about things, because we get that reflection, because she was probably talking to her daughter in a very serious, and like you said, bossing her around. And so maybe her change would be that she would begin to ask her questions instead, and practice being more curious with her instead of telling her what to do.
Yeah. Or like you said, it might wake you up to, oh, I'm really being serious in my tone right now. Where am I being serious in my life, and how can I shift that? What changes do I want to make? So like you're saying, it can inform other shifts, because because then we're receiving the impact of our own voices or our own tone. I think that's really interesting to think about. It made me think about all those studies where, if you like hold certain positions with your body, it actually changes your mind, and not just your mind, it changes your like biochemistry. You start to have different hormones come online, and your confidence goes up or down depending, if you slouch or if you stand really like proud, for example. That's one of the common ones that's talked about. Then it completely changes your physiology. So they say go in the bathroom, before you have an important meeting, and do this like, superwoman stance, because it actually makes you have certain feelings, it makes you feel more confident. And I wonder, how much of that with tone too. It's like when you take on a certain tone, we think, oh, that's faking it. But what if it actually changes things for you? What if you have a different experience as a result? So that's more a conjecture than a proven fact, but I think it's interesting to think about.
But it's very, very true. It's just like when I stand, that's why I love to stand and train, because I become so much more animated, and so much my voice tone changes completely. But I think it's also because I'm standing, and like you said, I'm in my body. That's always bothered me, as being on Zoom, is you're sitting and you really, it does not feel the energy flow you don't feel, in your body. It's a very different way. And of course, because I stood in front of a room for so many years, that was the way I conducted, right? My voice and my energy and everything. When I learned to train, I taught you this. You sit, you don't speak really loud. You sit back and you speak to the wall in a very loud way. And that's using your voice and your tone. Yeah.
Yeah. You talk about coming from deeper inside of yourself, and then projecting out from that place, rather than it's almost like you imagine your voice is coming from, like you said, your throat, or even coming from outside of you and projecting out, versus like really dropping into your body and then speaking louder from that place, or using emotion or energy with your voice from that place. So that was a really powerful learning for me. And for me, that was around not tiring my voice, which was a big thing that used to happen to me when we were coaching all day long, or, recording, doing all kinds of things, is my voice would get tired by the end of the day. And I don't have that, anymore since you taught me that. So, Yeah. So a lot of different things here to think about. I think just to tie it together, how do people start to become aware of their tone?
Listen to yourself, just record yourself. I think that's what people could take away. Record yourself one day, just talking, and then talking to a friend or talking and listen, and you'll hear so much through that, but also start to be aware when you're talking maybe to your loved ones or your children, and how are you talking? What's the tone? Would you like to be talked to like that? That's the other question to ask, how would you feel if somebody was talking to you like that? I think often if you ask that question, you go, I wouldn't really like that. I wouldn't respond well to that.
Yeah. And would you speak to a stranger that way, or would you speak to someone that you work with that way? I mean, that's often the test, right? Is like we make it so personal with our loved ones, but if you really go, like, would I speak to someone else this way? How would I speak to someone else? Then that might also help you change your tone. So
yeah. So it's a simple topic, but I think a very powerful topic. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's so subtle, but if you play around with it, and maybe you just choose one person to play around with it. Maybe it's with your kids, and you try, like I said, instead of go do this right now. Hey, would you go do that for me right now? Yeah. And see what kind of response you get from that.
Yeah, I mean, just to close out on that, I think if you think about babies, they're like, I have a 7-month-old, right? And it's instantaneous. It's like if you go up serious, then they match your serious, they're like, what's serious? If you go up and you smile and you laugh, we're always doing that with babies. But why do we stop, right? Why do we then change? Oh, because we think they're going to reason with us, but it doesn't matter what age we are. We're all little babies still inside. We all react to somebody else's energy and to somebody else's tone. So all right, everyone. Well, Gigi, happy birthday. Have a beautiful time at your retreat. And everyone else, have a fabulous start to your spring, right? It's going to be spring here next week. So happy spring.
It starts on 21st. First day of spring. Yeah.
Yay.
So, yeah.
All right. See you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.